Today I was invited to speak to all of you about verbal abuse and what it does. You have some questions?
What is verbal abuse?
Verbal abuse is when someone is laying their trip on you. In other words, they, for some reason, want to be in control. So if they want to be in control, if they make themselves look bigger, so they make you look smaller. That's one way of verbal abuse. Another thing is a mother will say to a child, "You'll never grow up to be anything. You'll always be fat. If you keep eating that junk, you're going to always have pimples. You're going to always be fat. You're going to always be lazy. You're just like your father." Sometimes a parent or a teacher will say something like this to a child, not meaning any harm. If we start believing that we're going to always be fat, or we're always going to have bad skin, or we'll never make anything of our life, because an authority figure, they're big, you're little, and they tell you this over and over, and before you know it, you believe it. And then when you have children, or if you have a coworker and you get upset, instead of you supporting them and helping them get out of it, you start abusing them, which causes more havoc in one's health than you could believe. Verbal abuse is very harmful. I'll tell you why. If you abuse somebody verbally, what you're doing is you're like squishing them under your thumb. You're holding them down. You're not letting them open up to their full potential. What you're doing is you're squashing that person's creativity. You're squashing that person's communication. You're definitely holding them in a box and not allowing them to expand in their life. You're not allowing them to open in your life. You're allowing that person nothing because you're closing them off. If you keep repeating something over and over, eventually you'll believe it. If you believe it and it's something detrimental, it's going to affect all of your organs.
What are some of the effects of verbal abuse?
Some of the effects that I see on verbal abuse is the person gets really angry. When the person gets angry, it affects the liver. The liver in Chinese medicine has to do with anger. Now, on the positive side, it has to do with kindness. But most people, when they're verbally abused, they tense up, they start feeling it in this part of the body, they feel it in the shoulders and the neck, they get very tense, but they don't say anything because they're being abused. So they internalize the energy, and what happens, it affects the liver. They get angry inside, they get more and more tense, and then they try to either bury it with food, alcohol, drugs. Somehow they're trying to get out of the situation. If they could just open up to it and change that anger into kindness, then they wouldn't have to rely on any outside forces and they could handle it themselves.
What can you do to heal verbal abuse?
What can you do to heal verbal abuse? Well, there's some things that I've learned when verbal abuse comes in. We work, it affects the liver strongly, and it affects the spleen. The liver has to do with anger, the spleen has to do with worry. I have this exercise. It comes from Chinese medicine. One of the branches of Chinese medicine is called medical Qigong. Medical Qigong helps transform the energy in the organ. So I'm going to show you this one exercise. This is to move the energy of the liver out, the anger, and bring the kindness in. It's done like this. You're going to push out with your hand, inhaling, pushing out, pushing out, pushing out. It's as easy as this. Now, there's a sound that you make. The sound of the liver, shh, shh. So you go, shh. You're letting go of anger, shh. You're letting go of anger, shh. You're letting go of anger. You're bringing in kindness. You're bringing in kindness. You're bringing in kindness. So let's do it together. Shh. 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 That's one exercise where you're doing an alchemical process where you're transforming the negative into the positive.
Can you give me some examples on verbal abuse?
Some examples on verbal abuse I've already covered, but I'd be glad to go over it again. Some of the examples cause little pains. You know, it looks like you gained a little weight. You've been eating pretty good. Looks like you've been working out with a knife and a fork. Those are verbal abuses. Giving somebody a backhanded compliment. You know, you're looking real good today. Looks like you haven't slept in a week, but you're looking pretty good. That's a nice shirt. Where'd you get it? Salvation Army? All those things are verbal abuse. People give you backhanded compliments. Some years ago, there was a lady, and she went in to get her stomach tied up, a gastro bypass, because she just couldn't lose weight. No matter if she ate a piece of celery a day, she still gained weight. So she went in for the gastro bypass. She's under anesthesia. The surgeons are sort of joking. She's under anesthesia. She doesn't know what's going on. She came out of surgery, and after she came out of surgery, she was really frustrated. She was really crying and beside herself. She went in to see a psychologist, and a psychologist who does some Ericksonian techniques. Ericksonian techniques, it's like a hypnotic trance. Suggestions, positive suggestions to sort of unravel the problem. Well, what they found out is when she was going through the anesthesia and the operation, the surgeons who were joking around really programmed her on a subconscious level. She felt bad, she felt depressed, and she put the weight back on. Once they straightened out, her and her psychologist went through a pattern and let go of all that stuff. Her weight came off, she started to feel good about herself, and she transformed a negative into a positive. And some people I say, you just have to visualize positive. And they said, Doctor, I just can't visualize. And I say to them, do you worry? They say, oh, I worry all the time. Worry is negative visualization. Positive visualization moves you up. Worry keeps you down. Worry is something that's going to happen or may happen or might happen. You don't even know. But you get what you think about most of the time. So if you're worried about negative things, that's what you're going to pull into your life. If you're thinking of positive things, how good it's going to be, how happy you're going to be, how strong you're going to be, how wealthy you're going to be, how happy, wealthy, healthy, happy, that's what's going to transform your life. It's Dr. Wu.